Hi.
Can you see me?
I can. How you doing? Can you see me? You can't see me. Hold on 1 second. I just want to send out a tweet quickly. Just hold on 1 second. So, where is the weather? So,
Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Can you see me and hear me, yeah?
Yeah. Make me a presenter again. So I can do something.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, you are the main presenter anyway. Now, you'll be. So, we have to, you shouldn't need to, but hold on 1 second. Going live in with.
Is my screen showing?
Hold on. Yes, it is.
Is it? And then now?
Hold on. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There, I see you.
So I'll keep that on, but I'll also keep my webcam on like that. So the webcam and the screen comes up. And then once I've introduced myself, I'll just do this. I'll turn off the camera and then it'll just have the slides, and then you'll turn off your camera and then I'll just go through the slides.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
So it's very, look, I mean, even if there's some stuff, it's not the end of the world. Oops.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second. Invite. I'm just going to copy this invitation. Copy. So now, oh man. Hold on. I'm going to do this one because it's a disaster. Go to webinar, copy this link. So, how do you, fuck, you can't, doesn't matter. So we got hashtag SEO. On. All right, let me copy this. Going live in 5 with Thursday marketing. Tweet that. Where's my Twitter here? And I'm going to put it on the SEO resellers page. I'm quite annoyed actually because we are we've actually got a community on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Digital marketing dream team with like a couple of thousand people, but I don't. I stay out of it with because Damien, he works on that with this chick in Australia. Okay, let's put that out.
So what we can do is when it's records, we can post the link on all the socials.
Yeah, once it's recorded, and that's exactly the idea, is that once it's up on the YouTube channel, and you can obviously add it if you want to add it to the Schindler's YouTube channel if you've got one or whatever. But we'll put it on the YouTube channel, and then what we do with it is we put it as a lead bait. So we put it onto a landing page. But we say to people, interested in POPI, cool, watch this webinar. They put in their details, we get a lead, and then they get a free webinar. But of course, also it becomes something that you can always use as a part of your portfolio, if you know what I mean. Like, that's the point of doing recording, is that it's evergreen. And that's another thing you must keep in mind as you talk, is that you must talk in terms of like, this will be forever. You're not, hold on, shit. You're not presenting for July 2019. You're presenting for July 2020, 2030, etc. Well, for as long as it lasts.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Share.
Can you see when people start joining or no?
Yeah, you should see. Well, it actually theoretically they should only start from 5. That's the problem with people. It's like 17 people's lacquer, but it's like I said to Pubs, if we get 5 people, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I'm not stressed.
People are awesome. Oh wait, there you go. People have joined. Hello guys. I see some people joining. Bernard, welcome. Neil and Sine. How you guys doing? Just let us know you can hear us and everything's good. Let me see here. To all entire audience, can you hear us? Question mark. Let's just see that they can all hear us. 4 people there so far. Peter's there. How are you doing, Peter? Cool. Geez, you guys are early. This is Hold on. Not attentive. Interesting. So I don't know if they can. I'm sure they can hear us.
Yeah, I'm also trying to log in on my phone and see if I can. But I think, yeah, I think it has come up. So yeah, everyone, guys, this is one of the first ones that we've done. So obviously there might be some glitches, but I think, yeah, we'll start in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're not 9 people are there. Okay, cool. So people start arriving. Give us a sec. Neil, to ask Colin. Colin, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Colin, guys, is an old friend of mine, an old partner. We've worked together, referrals and stuff. Brendan Cornier, welcome. Cool. Awesome. So yeah, we will start. Give us 2-3 minutes. We're just waiting for everyone else to arrive, and we can go from there. If you guys are there, just do me a favor and just type something in the. We can hear you. Yes, we can. Quentin, thank you. Sine, how are you doing? Sorry, guys. Just apologies. This is the first time on this platform, so we're just figuring out how it all works. Quentin, Sine, if hopefully I'm less of the old. Colin, I didn't mean old as in your age. I mean old as in I've known you a long time. Guys, Colin, if you actually saw him, you would know that he's a thriving 23-year-old. Really, really good looking guy. So do me a favor. So that's brilliant, guys. So if you guys have any questions, you can always just shoot them into the panel over here. Obviously, the way that this format is going to work is that Jen will basically just present what she's got prepared for us, and we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. Obviously, I'll ask some questions as we go along, but if you guys have any questions as you hear anything, please, by all means, shout outs. So Jen, I'll just keep an eye on these questions and
cool. So I think, what's the time now? Yeah, it's 5. Should we get going? So yeah, I think we should just introduce ourselves. Obviously, Steve, you can go first, and then I'll follow suit.
Cool. Give me 1 second. I just want to send that one message to see where. I know there was one other person who was waiting to come in. Yeah, cool. So let's get going then. How you all doing? For those who don't know me, or those who never met before, my name's Steve, and I'm from Globital. So we are a wholesale white label digital marketing company. We do digital marketing, SEO, AdWords, web design, all those sorts of things. But we do it for other digital marketing agencies. So we do it wholesale, allowing them an opportunity to scale and to grow their businesses and to not have to do any of the technical stuff we do it for you. Obviously, our role really is just to support and to help digital agencies run better, more profitable businesses. And that is the reason for today's seminar, webinar is the idea of today's webinar is that we have an opportunity to pick the brain of in case those are wondering, Jennifer's the pretty one and I'm the bald one. So don't get confused. The idea of this is that we know that POPI is a big thing in South Africa, especially for digital marketing agencies, and it can be very daunting and scary. So I did a seminar with Jen about a few months ago, and we did a podcast as well, which we'll talk about Jen's podcast as well. And the idea is that we want to present something to digital marketers so that they can better understand the POPI Act and not fall foul of the law, basically, when it comes to POPI. Jen, go for it. We can't hear you. Your microphone's not working.
Can you hear me now?
I think definitely put your headphones
Better.
in. Go for it.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Hear me?
Good.
Okay. So
yes.
I'm Jennifer. I work at Schindler's Attorneys. I'm a senior associate at Schindler's. I actually specialize in family law. However, I've actually gotten to a point where I've taken on a new role in rather educating people in order to prevent issues rather than fixing issues. So every single time you have an issue, you run to an attorney and you hope that they can fix them. But let's rather get to a point where we educate ourselves and empower ourselves with information to prevent some of the pitfalls that happen in our lives. So as you can see, I've named myself an adaptive attorney. I'm trying to kind of take the space from fixing things to rather putting information out there and allowing people to open their minds and start taking steps in order to protect themselves rather than have to come into my offices desperate and try fix everything. So as you guys are aware, the POPI Act is something that has been a demon floating around for a couple of years. Some people might know a lot about it, some people might not know about some people might know about it, some people might not know about it. But what I'm concerned about is that it's very legal. So I've kind of taken this webinar, tried to make it a bit fun. I know it can be a bit boring sometimes, but yeah, it's going to be super legal, but we are recording it if anyone else does want to listen to it afterwards. And I will put my details up at the end of the presentation if anyone does have any questions. So yeah, I'm going to get straight into it, and I'm going to turn off the webcam.
Can I just jump in quickly and just say, guys, look, obviously I've been through this a couple of times now with Jen. She's done a phenomenal job of what has to be one of the most boring and difficult and impossible to follow acts in South Africa, an act that isn't even yet complete or properly implemented or whatever. And she's put it into a format that's really, really helpful. It does get a bit legalese and a little bit hard to follow at times. Bear with her. I mean, she's done a really great job of making it digestible by creative people like us, and to making it relevant for digital marketers. So yeah, go for it, Jen. Sorry.
Cool. So yeah, I'm going to turn off this webcam and then I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint. Can you see it, Steve? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see your screen. All good.
Okay. The show on the road. Cool. Okay. So basically, as you can see, this POPI Act webinar, I'm here to empower and educate and let you guys inspire yourselves. And so essentially what I want to get into is the basics of what I'm going to be talking about. So there we go. So the topics that I'm going to cover. So the first topic I'm going to cover is the actual purpose and objects of the POPI Act. The second point is the 8 foundational principles that are introduced by the POPI Act. Thirdly, the effect of POPI on direct marketing in the digital marketing space, which I presume most of you that have joined are in. Fourthly, the POPI Act as well as data security. This is something that is super important, the data security space, which as we live in South Africa, it's going to be very hard to navigate, but I'm going to try to help you through it. Then advice for DMC, so that's the digital marketing companies, to comply with the provisions of POPI and the effects of non-compliance if obviously any of you don't comply when it becomes enacted. So essentially, what Steve and I have been discussing is that obviously POPI is a demon that's been lingering like over our heads for several years, and no one really knows what it really talks about. So like the seminar is super legal, as we said earlier. I do try and make it into layman's terms. As Steve was chatting to you about, I do have a podcast called The Lawyer and the Layman, where I take legalese and I change it into layman's terms. This will be quite legal because it is an act, but yeah, just bear with me as much as possible. Get a cup of coffee, have a chill. It is 5 o'clock, so hopefully you're off the clock. With regards to the main purpose of POPI, so it has been floating around for so many years, and people don't actually know what the main purpose of the seminar and what POPI is. So essentially, the main point of the seminar is to potentially show how POPI affects digital marketing companies. And what I'll refer to throughout this webinar is we need to kind of get to a point with what does this all mean? In simple terms, the purpose of the POPI Act is to ensure that all South African institutions conduct themselves in a responsible manner when collecting, processing, storing, and sharing another person's personal information, by holding them accountable should they abuse or compromise the relevant information in any way. So basically, now we kind of need to understand what is the gist of all of that. Sorry, I'm just messaging Steve. And what this all means is that you all have a right to be told if someone is collecting your personal information, or if our personal information has been accessed by an unauthorized person. So the Act does not apply to personal information that is obviously processed in the course of a personal or a household activity, or where the processing authority is a public body involved. So any body in national security, defense, public safety, anti-money laundering, and obviously if someone from the cabinet knocks on your door, subpoenas you for information, you can't start saying, oh, well, I need to comply with POPI, I'm not giving it to you, because it doesn't apply in these circumstances. So essentially, POPI is South Africa's equivalent of the EU GDPR. So this was something that I wasn't aware of until Steve actually approached me. I didn't know that the EU had something like this, and I've been researching it, and it's super interesting, and it actually regulates the space a lot, which regulation needs to happen in these sort of instances. And it sets the same conditions for you to lawfully process the personal information of data subjects. So a data subject would be both a natural and a juristic person. So layman's terms, natural person, you as an individual, juristic person, a company. And it sets out various other obligations that you would need to comply with. And I know it sounds super dramatic, but we've reached a stage where with all this great power and all this information that you're getting, now they've given you responsibilities that comes along with it. And I'm a firm believer in that. You can't have so many rights without a responsibility that is attached to it. So before interrogating the obligations that are placed on companies by POPI, it is vital that one understands the terminology of the Act. So obviously most of you, and I'm not quite sure, have ever picked up the POPI Act and started reading it, and you've been like, as you can see the picture, what the hell is going on? Me, even as an attorney, reading it, I was like, wow, this is super legal and gonna have to dig a little bit deeper. So the terms which are essential to the seminar and this webinar and the obligations which are created by POPI are as follows. So the first one is processing of personal information. Second one is a responsible party. The third one is data subject and personal information. And the fourth one is, the fourth one is personal information. The in terms of the processing of personal information, what we all need to understand is that this means the act of collecting, storing, using, and the using of personal information of others is known as the processing of personal information. And this is what largely the POPI Act seeks to control by way of regulation. It essentially says to you, this is how you need to process personal information, and this is your responsibilities with processing your personal information, which I'll go through now. The Act also defines the person and companies that are processing the personal information as the responsible party. So you sitting here, you could either be the responsible party or the data subject. We jump in between both terms. So I'll be a data subject in certain instances, and in certain instances, I'll be a responsible party. But sorry, if you can see all of this popping up, that's just my Dropbox stuff. So in terms of responsible party, I'll give you an example. If, say, for example, your bank would be considered as a responsible party because of their access to your personal information. So you with ABSA or Nedbank or Capitec, any of your banks, they would be obligated to comply with POPI, and you would obviously be the data subject in this instance. So if you're sitting here as a digital marketing company and practicing in that scope, you'll be considered as the responsible party. I will explain this in depth a bit later on. Then with regards to personal information, so it's very easy for me to say here, well, this is how you process personal information, but what is personal information? Personal information, in terms of the Act, would be as follows. Firstly, contact information, including email addresses, telephone numbers, and addresses. I'm sure a lot of you deal with a database full of email addresses, telephone numbers, and addresses. The second thing would be demographic indicators, including one's sex, age, race, and date of birth. I'm sure you also deal with that information. Thirdly, the opinions of the data subject and or opinions by the data subject. Fourth, private correspondence from and with the data subject. And lastly, the personal history of the data subject, including the employment and financial details. So because this is obviously recorded, you will be able to go through that again. But essentially, what this actually means is that personal information is those 5 things. So if you're collecting any of that information, I need you to listen attentively. As I said, I don't want this to turn into a legal lecture, but it's very important that you do understand your rights and responsibilities in this regard. So what now we've spoken about is the normal terminology. So that's the normal terminology that we deal with from the beginning. And then what the Act does, although it's as if it's not legal enough, they now provide for advanced terminology. So it gets more advanced. I do understand as law practitioners, we love to complicate things clearly, because even this, yeah, this is quite complicated, but let's get into it.
So Jen, sorry, can I just jump in?
Sure. Let me pop the.
Jen, can you hear me? Again. Yeah, cool. So
yeah,
I just you can hear me. Cool. So look, I think there's obviously, guys, you can obviously see how sort of technical this all gets, and I think how Jen has broken it down for us. So Jen, it's quite interesting. I just wanted to point out, guys, if you do have any questions, you can shoot them through, obviously, and we can discuss them. But what's quite interesting, I thought there was that it's a lot more than just email address and phone number here that you're talking about. You're talking about things like age, sex, all sorts of information that is actually is taken into account in this regard. It's not just the email and the phone number. Yeah. So what do we as marketers? I mean, when we do we need to consider worrying about those sorts of things? Would a protection for us as marketers, let's say this, would a protection for us as marketers be to not ask for that stuff if we don't need it?
Well, you'll see as I get more into the webinar, I'll start to explain to you that most of this is about consent and getting information that is related to what you want. So as I said, I'll get more in depth about it and we can discuss about it. But if, say, for example, you are emailing someone and getting someone's information for a event based on health and fitness, you can't then start popping a million emails to them and start bombarding them with your marketing strategies if they've only signed up for that specific sphere. So as I said, yeah, I'm gonna get into the advanced terminology now. And then what I think will be cool is that once I've spoken about all the content, we can discuss practical things, because this is super legal. I do give practical examples as much as I can, but when it comes to that, I'll give a quick answer. Always have consent, and always explain to the data subject why you're collecting the information, what you're going to be doing with it, and ensure them that you do know about POPI in order to protect the information. So I think that's a starting point.
All right, cool. All right, cool.
Okay.
Short.
Let me pop this thing off again. Okay, so basically understanding the advanced terminology. So you get personal information, and now you get special personal information. The special personal information falls into another class of information and is obviously subject to greater protection. So let's be honest, you can't get to a point where you become an absolute nightmare shouting at digital marketing companies for using your email address. Obviously, if you're bombarded with junk and spam and all of that, it's a different story. But your email address is kind of out there. We have business cards, we have our social networks, we have everything that places our information out there. But special personal information is another category. Generally, this category of personal information can't be processed in a normal manner. However, there obviously are exceptions that are envisaged in the Act, which include, but are not limited to, the following circumstances. Firstly, if obviously you as the data subject consents to this information being released. Second, the exercise or the defense of a right or obligation in law. Obviously, if something is not legal and you're protecting that information, you can't do that. And thirdly, for purposes of an international law obligation. So that's all legalese. Basically, I want you guys to just focus on consent. And the information that is included in this category is as follows. 1, information pertaining to children. So children in our law are extremely protected, and information regarding a child you do need to protect is a different level. Information pertaining to religious beliefs. So the information if you are running a church or anything like that. Information pertaining to race and ethnic origin. Information pertaining to trade union membership. So if, say, for example, you get a call from a random person asking what trade union your companies are part of, before you could just waffle off this one and this one and this one, it's a bit more intense now. You can't just give that information out whenever you are asked about it. And that's what I want you guys. I'm kind of here to plant the seed. So every time you are faced with something like this, you do try to protect yourself. Health records, obviously, DNA information, obviously. Information pertaining to one's sex life. I'll give you another example. If you're giving blood and they're asking whether you've had sexual intercourse in the last 3 months, you can't just cross through it and say, well, no, POPI's protecting me. They need to know that, because the blood that you're giving needs to be safe. So kind of how I conceptualize this is that it needs to be relevant to what you are doing. So if you're giving blood, obviously they can ask those sort of information. But if you're driving into a complex, they can't ask you for your blood sample or anything like that. So also be super practical about it, be logical, and take it from there. And then the last one is information pertaining to criminal behavior and your criminal record, which obviously is considered to be special personal information. Yeah, so this is super legal, and I understand that, and I'm an attorney, so it would be weird if I was sitting here not giving you legalese, but I want to provide you with some practical scenarios based on the personal information part and the special personal information part. So scenario 1. A takes out a cell phone contract with X Mobile and provides them with his or her contact details, payslips, and identification documents. You need to do that in order to get a contract in South Africa in terms of FICA. So you can't just start saying, no, I'm not giving that information. So in this scenario, X Mobile will be in possession of information defined as personal information, right? X-Mobile will therefore be the responsible party that is processing the data subject's information, which is A, you, and they would have a legal obligation to abide by the provisions in terms of POPI for personal information. Then, in scenario 2, you're now taking out medical insurance. When you take out medical insurance, they obviously need to ask you, can you hear me? They obviously need to ask you a whole bunch of other information. So what is your medical history? What do you suffer from any diseases? That's the information that you need to now give. But now this medical insurance provider needs to take further steps in order to comply with the special personal information. That data security part I'll deal with at the end, because for me it's the most important of how you take this and now you implement it. And consequently, with understanding the terminology of POPI, it is obviously evident that the main objective and purpose of this act is to introduce accountability on behalf of the responsible party for its access to processing of personal information. So now it's gotten to a point where not only are you obliged to give this information, you can give this information knowing and feeling safe that the responsible party now is accountable for protecting your personal information. Obviously before they would have had to, but now it's enacted into law that if they don't, there's serious consequences that they can face. Steve, did you want to ask something? Sorry, I heard you come in.
Sorry, so Jen, I just want to check that you're on slide. What slide are you on there? I just want to make sure you're on slide 7, yeah?
Oh, there. Yeah, hang on.
Better. It was on that. I think it was stuck on that slide for a little while.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So yeah, cool. No, that's better. We'll consider a responsible party in terms of the act and balance the provision.
Yeah. So essentially, what I'm saying, you're right now, you are a responsible party and bound to the principles of POPI. That's essentially what it means.
Cool. So with regards to have you finished off the practical examples?
Yeah, so the practical examples I've gone through where I've just explained so what will be considered personal information and what will be considered special personal information. I don't know if digital marketers will ever deal with the special personal information space, but if you do, then you obviously need to know that you're accountable for that information and extra precautionary measures need to be taken. Okay, so what I'm going to do now,
so, yeah. Hold on, we got a question here from Vasa. It's quite a good question. It's very digital marketing oriented. He's referring to retargeting and retargeting or remarketing and data collection done by cookies, but also in particular by analytics. So the question is, if we're collecting age, gender, and other data anonymously from analytics, are we affected by POPI? So Jen, just I mean, you know more or less about digital marketing, but basically we as digital marketers are able to track traffic that comes to our website. Let's say we're able to know where the traffic came from, what country it came from, maybe what other websites they've been to, you know, using things called cookies, right? But it's anonymous. Does this impact us?
From what I understand, because you know that I know zero about that space. Well, not zero, I've learned more and more about it, but essentially when it comes to, I know whenever I use a website, something pops up and goes, do you accept these cookies, right? It's a weird question because I don't even know what a cookie is besides the food part. But do you accept these cookies? And I just press yes. So for me, that's consent. Okay, it's not up to you to educate, and this is my view, and any other attorneys that listen to this or any other legal brains that listen to this, they're more than welcome to contact me and discuss it. But my interpretation of it is, if you're on a website and you specifically have gone to a website and you've asked, do you accept the terms and conditions, or do you accept these cookies, or do you accept X, Y, and Z, that for me is consent. It's up to you for you to understand what you're accepting. I don't believe that it's up to the person on the website to explain exactly what happens. So what I've just said in terms of POPI, if you are worried about anything, put things on your website we are POPI compliant, obviously, when it's enacted. All information that we collect by virtue of this would be protected in terms of the Act. So you kind of are telling people that you are taking the steps in order to be POPI compliant, but on the same token, they are consenting to something specific. So for me, analytics,
Right.
I'm not quite sure what happens with regards to data anonymously coming in, but no matter what the data is, it is up to you to protect that data by obviously the data security channels, which I'll go through. And I think that's what I'm going to focus on.
Yeah. So look, I obviously knowing what's coming, Jen, I can say, so Jen will get through how to protect data in a little bit. But I think what's really core about Vaso's question was anonymity, when we don't necessarily know who the people are, so we don't know, there's no risk of us letting any, doxing anyone or anything like that. But I get what Jen's saying, is that rather err on the side of caution and just protect your data anyway, using the channels that you're going to discuss. Is that right?
Yeah, you might as well, because imagine, God forbid, something gets hacked, and although it is anonymous, you still are having people comments from their own, let's say, social medias or their email addresses. So there would still be some trail to get back to that specific person, or not. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
For me, that's practical.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So yes, Anna. I think that's where the lines blur, because analytics are often anonymous. But I see your point as well, Jen, where you say that if somebody comes to your Facebook page and comments, and you have some sort of lead funnel or whatever it is, and you're collecting their data, and you haven't protected that data, then you are in a way. So you're just saying, whether it's anonymous or not, rather take the step of protecting yourself rather than protecting yourself.
These days, and you have people that. So what I'm going to actually do is that I'm going to go through the 8 core principles very briefly, and then I'm going to focus more on data security and steps that digital marketers can take in order to implement this practically. I think that's the most practical way to actually deal with it.
Cool. Vaso, does that help you out? Does that come into your question? Okay, carry on. Vaso will respond, and I'll let you know what the story is. Go for it, Jen.
So obviously you can see the core principles are accountability, processing limitations, information quality, purpose specification, further processing limitations, the openness principle, security safeguards, and data subject participation. So essentially I'm going to explore these briefly. Accountability, obviously, which I said earlier, it will require you as the DMC to ensure that someone, i.e. any of your employees, will be responsible for the information protection in accordance with the provisions of the Act by way of security controls which are enforceable during the course of the business operations. So it's all good and well that you know exactly what's going on with POPI. You need to educate your employees, because they also need to know what's going on, because they're essentially working for your brand. And all of these conditions must be adhered to and followed at all times. Then the second one is processing limitations. This is concerned with the lawfulness of the data processing by you. So essentially what this says, to be compliant in this respect, you will have to ensure that the processing of the personal information does not occur unless the following circumstances exist. The first one, the information has to be relevant. You can't start asking people what their blood type and all of that is if you're trying to sell them an event for a protein shake or something like that. Unless obviously it's relevant where it's only specific to certain blood types, but the information that you're asking for always needs to be relevant. So I want you to sit down. If you're asking for any information, is it relevant to what you want? Or are you trying to get a whole bunch of information from this person that you can potentially sell or use? Then the second one is that there exists a rational connection between the extent of the information processed and the purpose for which it is being processed. That's self-explanatory. And then the last one, that the information being processed is not in excess to what is required, and that's obviously. So what I've kind of said to you in the beginning as a jump on from the first one, and let's be honest, you don't need to know everything about the person, and be specific with what you want. If you are doing an anonymous post or analytics or asking for information, make sure that everything you're asking for is relevant and doesn't push boundaries. Then the third one is information quality. This principle entails the responsible party ensuring that reasonable practical steps are taken in order to ensure that the personal information being processed is complete, accurate, and not misleading, and is updated when necessary. So in order to comply with this requirement, you would have to go to the extra mile and authenticate the information that is processed. I'll give you another example of something that I've actually dealt with now, where I've had a client that is being fined as, so he's a restaurateur, and he is being fined for not authenticating identity documents. So it's quite a weird thing, because now it's got into a predicament that been given an ID document from his employee. They are legal, it's a legal document, but it wasn't authenticated. How many of you have gone into Home Affairs in order to authenticate identity documents of your employees? I'm sure none. And like, if you have, that's amazing. But it basically tells you now, when you are requesting original documents, you must ensure that the information is correct. So always ask for certified documents if needed. Always ask for the original if possible, and even going the extra step, seeing if an ID document, for example, is part of, or is legal at Home Affairs. Then the fourth one is purpose specification. This principle requires the responsible party to specify the purpose for which the information is being collected when collecting the personal information from the data subject. So it imposes a twofold obligation on the responsible party. This twofold obligation in the Act goes on and on and on. I've tried to simplify it by just saying that the responsible party must ensure that the purpose for which the information is being collected must be explicitly defined, lawful, and for a purpose connected with the ordinary functions of the responsible party. Look at your business, look at how you normally ask for information. If you're doing this already, that's amazing. And the second thing is that the responsible party must take active steps to ensure that the data subject is appraised of the purpose and the reason for which their personal information is being collected. So if a responsible party requires information for the purpose of market research, that purpose must be stated and it must be lawful. So, because POPI places a significance behind the data subject knowing what their personal information is being used for. So always explain what it's being used for. If they have any questions, make sure. So what I kind of say is that get a document together that explains essentially what you're asking the information for, and just kind of letting people know what the information is being used for, because then you're already protecting yourself. And just, as I said, yeah, explain and guide people. Then the fifth one is further processing limitations. This principle imposes further limitations on the processing of personal information in instances whereby such personal information is obtained not directly from the data subject, but from a third-party source. So now you're not dealing directly with the data subject, you're dealing with another third party that is giving you information on the data subject. And now the processing of this personal information must be lawfully obtained from the third-party source and must be compatible with the purpose for which it is being processed by the original responsible person. So the data subject gives information for, let's say, for example, market research, and it's based on a health product. Now this third party is giving you information, but it's actually not for that purpose anymore. You need to tell that third party that you just all basically need to play open cards with what the information is being used for, and make sure that the data subject hasn't given information to this third party for a specific purpose, and then you start using it for another purpose, because it's going to lead you to be in trouble. Then the sixth one is the openness principle. This also has a twofold obligation and entails the following. Firstly, the processing of personal information can only take place after the information protection regulator has been duly notified where such processing falls in the categories as envisaged of the Act. So in layman's terms, the information protection regulator hasn't been fully established yet. But if you do have any questions or you do need to ask anything, that regulator will be there in order to guide you. And the compliance with this principle requires the responsible party to provide certain prescribed information to the data subject. So the prescribed information would include the details for which the information is being collected, so all of these 8 core principles for me, if you have to say to me, Jennifer, put it in one line: always be open, always be honest, always get consent, always explain to the data subject what you want the information for, and just always make sure that you are protected. But basically, you always need to just constantly explain and be open for the purpose for which the information is being used. And if your company processes personal information belonging to the data subject, this openness principle actually mandates that your company must be accountable to that specific data subject. And this is why you have to provide certain prescribed information, such as your company name and your company registered address when obtaining same. So I don't know if anyone knows, but in terms of if you run a legal firm, you have to have all the attorneys that are working at the legal firm on your letterhead. This is kind of the same concept, my interpretation, where you have to be open with your company's name and the registered address in order for them to be able to contact you if they do have any issues. And as I said, it's in the name, just be open. 2 more, sorry. 7, security safeguards. This principle imposes an obligation on the responsible party to implement safeguards to prevent, so this for me is the most important, loss, damage, unauthorized destruction, unlawful access, and unlawful processing of the personal information provided by the data subject. I'll go into depth later on with this. I actually want to spend quite some time on this, of how to actually be able to keep the data secure. And then the last one is data subject participation, where this principle centers around the rights of participation of the data subject and the protection. So it affords the data subject a variety of rights. So the first one would be the right to request that the responsible party confirms whether they are in possession of the personal information belonging to the data subject. Give you an example. Let's say, for example, you get a call from a telemarketing agency, as we do, and they start waffling on about an amazing product that they have and blah, 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 blah. You're either the kind of person that just slams on the phone. That's what I do. I'm just like, sorry, I'm in a meeting, and I put down the phone. Obviously, I'm not rude, but it's you now, in terms of POPI, actually have the right to say, well, where did you get my information from? And that agency has a duty to tell you exactly where they got your information from. So some people might love this. I know I'm not going to use it. I don't care where they got my information from. I just don't want them to call me. But you do have that right afforded to you as a data subject now. And as a responsible party, just ensure that you do have records where all this information comes from. Then the second one is the right to request the record or description of the personal information being held by the responsible party. So this goes even further, where you can say, well, you have my cell phone number and you called me for this marketing call. Tell me what other information you have. Do you have personal information? Do you have special personal information? Tell me what information you have. And that's something that, as a responsible party, you need to tell your employees and the people that call on your behalf or email on your behalf that they need to know this. And yeah, so the above mentioned, well, what I've said here, these 8 principles here are detailed in various provisions in POPI, which obviously is extremely legal. And these 8 principles are the core principles. And as I said, summarize it into one quick sentence: be open, give consent, always know where you've gotten information from, always have security checks, train your employees to know what's going on, and then hopefully you'll be A for A. So I don't know if Steve has any other questions. I can't see anything coming up.
Just needed to take a quick deep breath in there, because every time we go through this same thing that I've been through twice already, it just dawns on me how tremendously difficult this actually is for us little non-legal people. and how daunting it can actually be if you actually do and want to stay protected. Guys, if you have any questions, go for it. Shoot them through. We nearly done actually with most of it, and we're going to just hopefully just have a bit of a chat at the end. But Jen, I think going through, yeah, as I say, it's very overwhelming. But going through what you've just been through, I think what really hits me and always hits me is that as you say, that openness, that transparency. For a digital marketing, from a digital marketing perspective, guys, I'm sure that you're all been in the situation where you're putting together a let's say a MailChimp email marketing campaign, and at the bottom it won't let you actually send out the campaign unless you filled in the part that says remind the user how they got into your email list. So you know, again, that sort of is a bit scary because as marketers we tend to just kind of spray and pray in a way. Sometimes when we send out email marketing to 1,000 people and we get 10% or 1% or whatever it is responses, it's just I think from a digital marketing perspective, would you suggest then that we are rather err on the side of caution and not send it out, or go ahead?
I don't know. So what I would do in that kind of situation is that, so for me, I'm a firm believer in like speaking to people, telling them exactly what's happening. So if you are in that space, I recommend either have a document where people they can go into your website and you can do it, or make a video and you basically get behind the video and say, listen, I've done a webinar and I've done a seminar on the POPI Act. It's still up in the air. However, when you're getting this email and when you're getting all this information, if you're at a point that you don't want it, you can say that. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm actually going to take the ways in order to regulate this and do it in a proper manner and explain it. So now we've got the information. Now we know what personal information is. We kind of know our duties. But now in the next like 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to just give a basic breakdown of what you can do, what you can't do, and how you should do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, cool. That's great, and that's the practical side of it. Two questions quickly. One from Quinton. Quinton says, how does this affect data stored on email software like MailChimp, GetResponse, Aweber? Are they considered to be safe and secure? So I think Jen's obviously going to get into that now, Q, about how to actually protect your data, you know, password protect and stuff like that. But I know that from our perspective as a marketer, or as a person whose position is to help other digital agencies all over the world to run better digital agencies, the answer is don't rely on them only. You can rely on them to an extent. Of course, they have some sort of security measures. MailChimp has a password, for example, etc., and verification like any software does. But again, you'll go into what Jen does now, but don't rely on them only. The last thing you want is for MailChimp to be hacked, their server to be hacked, and all of your data gets stolen, and in which case you've done nothing to protect it.
Kind of stuff. So what I'll go into now is basically how your data protection, it's very difficult. The Act actually doesn't specifically say what you need to do. It's very industry specific. So if you say, for example, run a doctor's practice and holding medical records, then obviously you have a CCTV camera, have locks, have an alarm system, have all of that. If you have a digital platform where you are collecting information on your laptop, so I think let me just deal with this now, just so people can actually get an understanding of what it is that, let's say, for example, you have an employee that goes home and wants to work late in the evening, and he takes his laptop with him, and you are chilling at home and you get a call and his car got jammed and his laptop got stolen. You can't prevent that, right? So you phone your IT guy and you say, listen, I have gotten to a point now where one of my employees' laptops got stolen. Like, is everything protected? And he goes, oh crap, I actually forgot to put the security up on the, I forgot to like secure that laptop. You'll be in the poo because you haven't taken steps in order to protect that. So it can be completely industry related in the sense that you can have passwords, you can have encryptions. So if you do have information on a laptop, get an IT person to come in, encrypt everything. But what the POPI Act now does, it takes a step further. If someone's information got stolen on your laptop, and you were asked, and it got stolen, and you didn't have those encryption codes, and you didn't have any of that, you now actually need to inform every single person of the information that they've given you that it's been stolen. And then you need to take steps in order to try get that information back. So let's say it's something on Dropbox, or then you can get that back and delete it on the other person's side. But you now need to take steps, if something gets stolen, to retrieve it. So it's not just a case of, oh crap, it's been stolen, I can move on with my life. You need to report it to the regulator. You need to contact every person's that information that you have. You need to take steps in order to try to retrieve that information. And then lastly, you need to take steps in order to protect that information. So rather protect it as a in order to obviously ending up in trouble.
Yeah. And guys, I think obviously
for me, data security is the most important, purely because that information, you have to protect it as a first base. If it gets stolen, then you now actually have to become accountable for what you haven't done. The Act doesn't, as I said, say specifically what each industry needs to do, but just be practical, take steps. And I'm sure most of us already do.
Right. And I think that goes to the point I wanted to say here about, guys, obviously we're digital marketers. So our businesses are our digital business. But we will run a marketing campaign for a doctor, a dentist, a nursery school down the road, a soccer. So and this I suppose is why it's so beneficial what Jen's sharing with us, is we're getting all the knowledge we need to give that advice to the doctor, to the dentist, etc., so that they then have that advice. Because as you say, Jen, it's not specific. They don't make it specific about what the actual Act actually does.
Exactly. So let me also give you like another example. So
go on.
So, you know, like obviously we have the Consumer Protection Act that protects us from digital marketing, and can't just call people, although people still call people. But now what POPI has essentially done is that if you are digital marketing and you are sending out a whole bunch of SMSs, so let's say, for example, you have a product and now you're sending out SMSs where the SMS says, we have this product, it says X, Y, and Z, press this in order to opt out, right? Now, what POPI has done is that it's recreated that. It's made a opt-in option. So if you have someone's information, you say, this is my product, this is what I'm selling, and they actually have to opt in for you to message them again. It can't be where you bombard them with all this information and wait for them to opt out. So that it's kind of made it a reverse responsibility.
Interesting. Okay. That's that's also pretty important, is you can't just bang out emails every week to somebody just because they added you to your list.
Exactly. So just because, but now it's going to be created with, instead of people having to opt out, you have to send your first email and say, if you still want to get all this content, you must opt in. And if they still keep bombarding you when you haven't opted in, then that's a different story.
Yeah, pretty scary. Really sorry, one other question. Sorry, carry on,
So I think that for me the main thing is data. So how I kind of want to summarize everything is, firstly, when collecting information, make sure that it's relevant, make sure that the person knows exactly what you're collecting it for, and make sure that you have a plan that is implemented, that once you have that information, you can protect it. So for me, I would see it as like a three-prong approach. The first approach, when you're collecting, have like a sheet where you even have things that you tick off. Firstly, has the person consented? Yes. Secondly, have I explained why I want this information from this data subject? Yes. Does the data subject understand the purposes of this, and have they consented? So now you're linking consent and purpose together. And fourthly, does the data subject know that I do have security measures in place in order to protect this data? And then lastly, does the data subject know that if this information does get stolen, there are consequences of it getting stolen, and they will be informed of that. So what I'll recommend is that all of you with your employees have some sort of checklist that they go through, because they also need to understand what is potting in order for it to be practical.
Right,
So
cool.
what I would basically say,
yeah, cool.
for me is now, like, so I want to take everything that I've explained to everyone and give like a takeaway. So how, and I think this is the biggest question, how do DMCs be POPI compliant? Which I presume is obviously the main question that is being asked. But in my view, the first thing is that I do think that this seminar will help, but I do recommend a formal seminar in your company. So you guys can contact me, I can come in, give a seminar to the whole company, establish a checklist for you guys to abide by, and also have me on standby if you do need anything, if there are any sort of breaches and all of that. Because I think it's super worrying now. If God forbid something does happen, you don't want to have to unravel it rather than prevent it. Then, so
Yeah,
for me,
cool.
educate your employees, and then obviously have a document that's reader friendly, that people understand, that people can go through, and have data security things in places. So even if it's passwords, even if you have certain encryptions or anything like that, that would obviously help the specific person to know that their data information is protected.
Awesome. So two other quick questions here from Cecil. Cecil asks, if a data subject does, for instance, sign for a newsletter or marketing campaign via a website, does that signify consent from the subject?
Yes. Yeah. Because they're now, so for me, they're opting into something. So they've gone onto the website, they've signed up for your newsletter, and they have actually come to you to ask you for a service that you send to them.
Right. And I guess going to what you've just said a couple of minutes ago is it signifies consent for that campaign. You can't start banging that email address with all your campaigns. Just because they sign up 10% off your first SEO campaign doesn't mean that you can now start bombarding them with social media and with you know, go to my mother's florist and get a free bunch of mother.
Exactly.
You can't start banging.
This is kind of just helping people not to be bombarded, for the information to be protected and processed in a correct manner, and because like we've reached a stage where a lot of people sell information, and I believe that POPI has now said to people, you can't make a living of other people's information. That's not fair. So now we're going to give you accountability, and we're going to give you responsibility, because for me, you have this right and people have given you the information, but how dare you abuse it? So that's how I kind of seen POPI, where you can't start abusing certain things in that regard. So for me, as a digital marketing agency, ask questions. If you're worried, contact me. Say, can I specifically do this? But I also don't think that you also need to be so scared of this app that you're not going to do anything. Like, ask questions, make sure that your questions are answered, and make sure that you have, so for me, have consent, explain the relevance, have your data security things in place, communicate with your data subject constantly, and just ensure that you don't abuse the information that you have.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll get into, I mean, I suppose we'll finish off with where POPI is right now. Just a quick question, again from Cecil. Cecil asked, does POPI cover data scraping as that done by HubSpot? Cecil, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're referring to basically scraping email addresses from the internet kind of thing. If that is the case, I'm assuming that's generally what data scraping is, where you basically just scrape. You'll go to a website, let's say you'll go to their contact us page, and you'll get the email address that they've put there. Then you'll go to the next website and get an email address they put there. Obviously, they're not opting into anything there, are they? You can't just start banging marketing emails out to them.
Well, the thing is, you can start banging on it. So my interpretation of it is that you can start banging out emails to them saying, this is my product, this is what I do, blah, blah, blah. Opt in if you want more of this information. If you don't opt in, you won't hear from us again. So it was the opposite, where you would get bombarded with, do you want a loan? And I still get it. I think I get about 10 a week, where I get offered loans, I get offered this, I get offered this, and it tells me opt out if you don't want these SMSs. I don't care. They can send me as many SMSs. I'm just a person that if you want to waste your time and resources on me, that's fine. But some people, they don't like being harassed in that regard.
So yeah, okay, cool. So it's quite interesting. I think what correct me if I'm wrong, what you've said is get an email address and send out an email offering them. But if they request not get it again, or you don't hear back from them, it means they haven't opted in. Then leave them alone.
Yeah, that's my view.
Okay.
So also, like, if you are getting information for your client, so let's say you have a client that approaches you that has a school and gives you all the information to do research and all of that, have that checklist. Are they consenting to giving this information? Have you asked them if the data subject that have given them the information know that you're giving the information to the other person? So kind of like, if you're not directly dealing with the data subject, make sure that they have explained to the data subject that the information that they've given is being relayed to another person. So it's just giving a lot of responsibilities to individuals in order to not abuse information, and still give people the right that if it is being abused, there is some sort of consequences.
Right, cool. Last question. Vasa asks, do you have to state the frequency of the newsletter? So do we need to say upfront, you know, where it says, would you like to hear about our newsletters or our weekly offers, whatever it is? Do you have to specifically say we send these out monthly or weekly or daily, or doesn't that matter?
I don't know. Every single time I've looked at a newsletter on a website, it always goes weekly newsletter or monthly newsletter. So I think by you saying, would you like to see a weekly newsletter, you don't have to explain that it's a weekly newsletter.
No, but do you need to include weekly, or can you just say, do you want our newsletters? We're not going to tell you how often, we're just going to send you newsletters.
Yeah, for me, I would include because also you're also asking an attorney, someone that every single time someone asks me a question, I'm like, rather do this so you're not in trouble. But if you don't, and the newsletter gets out, I don't know who sends out a newsletter every day. That must be extremely time consuming. But if it is a weekly newsletter, say weekly newsletter. If it's a monthly newsletter, say monthly newsletter. Because it's not going to deter anyone.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. Well, look, we've gone an hour. Jen, I think just to, as I say, my rant with POPI always, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but is that POPI is not formally finished or enacted or enforced as of yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's not formally enacted as of yet, but people need to start taking steps. So when it is enacted, that's why I think it's taken so long. So the rollout is there. People need to start, and POPI applies to everything. Like, I've done a podcast on POPI in terms of a sectional title scheme, what a body corporate can do and what they can't do. Like, if you're in a body corporate and your neighbor comes up to you and says, number 3 is pissing me off, I want your cell phone number, you as a trustee can't just give your cell phone number out anymore. And let's say there's an issue, which I'm actually having in my complex, over a stupid parking bay, where we have meetings about this parking bay every minute. It's honestly driving me insane. But if, like, someone just started a WhatsApp group about the parking bay, you can't do that. So that's so POPI applies to sectional titles. POPI will even start applying to social media. Like, it's actually going to start affecting all of our lives. But if you just focus on the foundational element of it, I do believe that you can be compliant. But I also do believe that if anyone that's listening does own a big company, a seminar would, and I'm not just trying to punt myself at all, like that, but a seminar would be super beneficial, because your employees are on the same page. You must also understand, as an employer, you are vicariously liable for any mistakes that your employee makes in the course of their employment. So just because you know about POPI and your employee doesn't, anything that they do or mess up is your problem.
Yeah, sure.
So it's important that they also know what's going on. Because at the end of the day, POPI is super complicated, but it's actually super simple if you just take it and put it into 3 sentences.
Cool. Awesome. Jen, anything else you want to get off? I mean, I know we cut you kind of short there. Is there anything else that you didn't get through?
So what I've done is that I've gone through everything. I'm just going to turn this off quickly, but I'm going to just, so these were the other slides, but I've gone through all the information in terms of what it is. So yeah, as you can see that slide, I'm sure everyone was feeling like that at a moment. But here are all my details. If anyone does want to contact me, there's my cell phone number. So I'm giving you my cell phone number. You don't have to, I'm not going to scream and shout about POPI. You're more than welcome to call me. In my Instagram podcast, which obviously deals also, we've dealt with a lot of POPI information. And yeah, as I said, this is kind of a webinar on an hour explaining the basics of POPI so you guys can understand what POPI is, what it intends on doing, and how it intends on doing it. And now it's actually up to you to take the steps in order to implement it and understand it properly. So you can either sit back and say, I don't care, which is fine, or you can, yeah, just dig deeper and see how you can be properly POPI compliant. Because I'm sure big clients, if they know about POPI, they're going to want to deal with POPI.
Yeah, cool, 100%. Well, look, I think, guys, that's it from now. As I say, Jen, you did spectacularly well, exactly 1 hour on the button. Just to everyone who joined us, thank you so much for coming through. Really do appreciate it. To Jen, once again, I don't know how you managed to make this stuff so digestible, but you do. Thank you so much for doing what you do and helping us with the POPI Act and whatnot. Just moving forward, guys, what we'll do is I will firstly, I'm sure Jen won't mind if we share this presentation with you, just her notes and whatnot. If you, yeah, we've got, and obviously this is recorded, so I will make this available to you guys once it's on our YouTube channel, so you guys can rewatch it if you want to, and of course share it with other digital marketers. Again, if you need help with POPI or whatnot, you've got Jen's details. We'll be sending out a mail with all this information with Jen's details, so you've got them as well. And of course, if you need any help with your agency's execution of strategies, copywriting, web design, whatever you need, you've got my details as well. Obviously, my team will be in touch. Just to get in touch and let you guys know how we can help you. And also a heads up for those who are interested, we are also working on a contract for digital marketers in South Africa, a basic contract that you can use for all of your future projects that you work on so that you're legally protected on that as well. So yeah, we'll be in touch about that. Jen, you're all good?
Awesome. I don't think people can see me anymore, but I'm still here. No, I don't press the button and I don't know what I did, but it's fine.
No, we can see. Don't pick your nose. We can see.
Can you see me?
Yes.
I can't see myself. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Thank you everyone for everything. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me, come see me. I'm at Sunda's Attorneys in Melrose Arch. And yeah, I hope that this was super informative.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Thanks, Jen.
Cheers. Bye.